Welcome to the Unwashed Asses, episode 63, recorded for Wednesday, December 5th. Oh, man. Big stretch. I gotta find a nice, succinct way to intro and outro these things, like a catchphrase, something that's, relatable, gets you in the spirit of things, and isn't just me bitching or stretching or moaning about whatever thing's griping me immediately. But would I lose the charm then? Would I lose whatever sense of connection you already have with my bitching and not knowing how to start things? Oh, man. So the cold has run rampant through the area. Folks are falling left and right. Not necessarily dying, but definitely getting congested and headachy and runny nose and scratchy throat. It has spared none at our home. Spent the day home yesterday. The little lady took a sick day, and I did my best to take care of her while failing miserably because I'm not a good caregiver. And then today, it's like I've had it for a couple days, but today's the first where I'm really starting to feel it. Before it was just a matter of taking like Advil and cough drops, but no, this morning I woke up and it's been like your head is so full of mucus and sick and awful, terrible things that you just want to crack it open like a cantaloupe. It's like whenever crack like a thing of broccoli into that just real I can't think of the word. We're just gonna say that great sounding sound rings through. It's kind of what I'm looking for here, where I just want to dig my fingers right into my scalp, through my hairline, and into the skin, and dig fingernails into the skull itself, and feel the powdery dust of bone as I reach in and then pull apart with a cracking noise and just let every bit of this terrible sickness ooze out of the front of my head. So it's been a thing of, well, I know I need to get a couple shows done today, but I'm going to lay on the couch and fuck around on my phone for a bit. And that led to, all right, well, let's get up and let's go to the computer. All right, I'm at the computer. Let's watch YouTube videos for an hour. Okay, now it's time to really get something done. But I need to check this first. Okay, but seriously, now we have to do something. No. Let's go back to Reddit on my phone. There's one thing I wanted to look at and I totally forgot. So here we are. No, it's not pleasant. And we have this is being recorded Friday, so I apologize for the delay, but you're gonna get a twofer today. We've got Friday Night Smite tonight, and it's a thing of how am I gonna get through that? I'm gonna have to at some point go out and get some Dayquil. I have NyQuil, but I actually need medication in me now. Because NyQuil's not going to make for an entertaining show. I'm going to be out like a light. But that's not what I want to talk about. That's the fucking catchphrase, because I've caught myself saying it for like the past week and a half. No, what we're going to talk today about is, mobile gaming. I've said many times in the past, but never really gone into too much detail, that I'm not a huge fan of gaming on like tablets or phones. The traditional sense of mobile gaming, past what we used to have with the Nintendo DS or like PSP. Mostly for the fact that it's not a great platform to play your games on. The controls, unless the game is really well designed, are not super intuitive. It's difficult to get into because they're trying to emulate traditional games that we have on consoles and PC, and where we have robust controllers and the entirety of a keyboard and mouse. And that was a sneezing cat because he decided to wake up. It's a sleepy day for everybody. But we don't have that on mobile. We don't have the ability to, unless you want to invest into a specialized controller that can hook up and is typically about $50, it's not worth investing that kind of money into it. And So we're left with lackluster controls for the most part, where you have like the bottom quarter of your screen is a little shitty joystick that, unless you have a good amount of oil built up, your finger doesn't slide around too much on there. And the same thing for the multiple buttons that may be necessary for the other actions in the game. It doesn't play well. And then for the most part, they don't look super great unless they go like with stylized graphics. I know it's gotten better over the past few years, but for the longest time we were looking at PlayStation 1 era graphics. They're very limited, and for the most part they're flooded with knockoffs and copycats, largely thanks to content creators from the Chinese market, or actually just Asia in general, where the copyright law is more of a suggestion than an actual law. But the biggest issue with them is that they are riddled with microtransactions. Microtransactions that started within the mobile world, but then moved on out into actual PC console games, to the point where the games... I have a really hard time thinking today. The state of gaming right now is not in a good place due to the microtransactions. And I understand developers, publishers need to make other money on their investments to continue making further games. But we're at the point now where $60 buys you the base game. You then have to spend $20-ish on DLC, for which there could be multiple pieces. This just adds on to the game, either through expanding the story or through meaningless content. Like, okay, we've added new weapons into this game. It could also be as bad as requiring a season pass. Season passes are, all right, you've paid $60 for the game, now give us an additional $50, and that gets you all the DLC we plan on releasing over the next year. Most which you have no idea what's going to be included in said DLC, so you're making a blind purchase with the good faith that the company's going to take care of you. You also have then the traditional microtransactions, where for like $2 or $3 you could get a piece of armor that's either cosmetic, or if it's a shitty game, will give you an advantage in the game. The biggest offender in this, I guess, would be, or I should say biggest offender, best example I could give in this would be Destiny 2, where you had the base game, which was released for $60, and then they said, oh, well, you can buy the season pass for, what was it? I think it was an additional $20 to $25. They're like, that'll get you the first two expansions, which were Curse of Osiris and, the one on Mars. Warmind. There we go. If you decided not to get the season pass because you didn't know what Bungie was going to put out, then you have to buy them individually, and they're like $15 a piece. I'm sorry, no. They were $20 a piece, and the season pass was $35. That's right. So, folks, when they had bought Destiny 2, had been essentially burned by the game itself, where it was a very pleasant, enjoyable run from level 1 to 20. However, after you reach level 20, you quickly ran out of things to do. Curse of Osiris was released after a few months, and people were really itching for something to do, and there wasn't much to do. It was almost a step backwards in terms of content. So the folks that had purchased the season pass immediately began thinking, well, this was a bad investment, because not only did we have not necessarily a bad, but a lackluster base game, but now the first bit of DLC has kind of burned us. So it's at this point that Bungie had called in several community influencers, and they had shown them what they were working on, what they planned on doing, and Warmind was revised and was released to pretty good acclaim. It wasn't enough to bring people back in the way that they were hoping, but it was definitely a good start in the right direction, and gave them leeway into the Forsaken expansion, which was another $40, and largely brought the entirety of the community back. So up until that point, you would have, if you were like myself, spent the absolute most that you could getting all the content. Was $60 for the base game, $20 for Osiris, $20 for Warmind, and an additional $40 for Forsaken. So at that point, for a game that had just become 1 year old, Instead of spending the $60 and getting all of my content, I'd have paid $140. Now you could argue, well, they're continuing to provide content, it should be charged. It's debatable. That's that slippery slope that we're in with how much is it actually worth? Are they actually delivering on that I am getting my $20 worth? You could argue that Curse of Osiris absolutely was not, whereas Warmind, yeah, maybe. Was Forsaken worth the $40 that they had charged? Maybe. But it got to the point where then they began to fragment the player base, where, and this is the biggest issue that I have with DLC, aside from the monetization of it, is that it starts to fragment the player community. You see it best in multiplayer games, typically like Call of Duty, Battlefield. Star Wars Battlefront is actually the best with this. So Battlefront had been developed by DICE and published by EA, and everybody was super looking forward to it, except the base game, kind of like Destiny 2, was very lacking when it was initially released. We then see, we have this DLC planned, go ahead, purchase the DLC, and we'll add in more content. Well, at this point, I already been burned by the game. There was not much to... the rewards in the game were limited, they were too expensive, and the amount of money that you could earn in-game to buy the items was insignificant. They were definitely trying to force you towards their actual money store. So when they released the DLC, promising, new ships, new heroes, and more maps, what had happened was it then fragmented the community between the haves and then the have-nots, to the point of, well, if you've purchased the DLC, you get to play with absolutely everybody. If you haven't purchased the DLC, you can only play with those that have not purchased the DLC. Instead of a smart matchmaking system where you could throw everybody into one pile, and depending on what match comes up or what map type comes up, you can then either A, play on that map, or B, not play on that map. And if you can't, you just get cycled into another lobby. Oh, look at that. Lando's shooting in the face. You haven't bought him. Well, you can still fight against him. You just can't fight as him. So, we have that aspect of it. Destiny, while it didn't necessarily fracture the community base, everybody could still play the game. You then began to get cut out of activities like raids and nightfalls. So to incentivize people and boost numbers, especially after Activision had reported that Destiny 2 wasn't doing quite as well as they had hoped, despite it being pretty far up there in terms of sales and overall revenue generated, there's always these expectations, and it's a lesson that Bungie should be well versed in. They offered the base game for free on battle.net, so everybody, as long as you had a battle.net account, even my fiance, made sure to log into her account and grab it. There's no reason turning away something free, and it was a good move. I've seen in our own clan where our numbers doubled, even though we are a small clan, for people participating and engaging and actually playing the game, and this did lead to more purchases. Now, at which point you can say, well, they've got the base game for free. Great, but they still have to spend another $75 for Forsaken and then the 2 expansions if they get the season passes. Not so. They bundled everything, expansions 1 and 2 under Forsaken. So you get the base game for free, and then you spend $40, and hey, look at that. You've got the entire game. It leads us to the problem, though, of what we're seeing with Black Armory. With Destiny, again, I don't want to reiterate too much here, but I had felt burned by them, especially in the first game. I had purchased it into the second year when, what was it? It was either Dark Below or House of Wolves, whichever one came out first. So I was eagerly, eating up all the content, and it went kind of seamlessly. But when I look back at it, you see that, there wasn't much to actually do there. And Bungie said one thing and then delivered a different thing, and they're not good at holding to their word. Particularly when we're transitioning from the primary development team to the live team, which then pushes out future content and does quality of life improvements. So we're at that stage now where there's not a big meaty chunk of content ready to be delivered to us. Instead, we have patches to kind of tide us over. we they're learning a lesson that they had been taught in the first game, where between what was it, Rise of Iron and the Dawning update, I think it was the April update, something like that. There was like a year where there was nothing to do in the game, and a lot of people ended up leaving because of it. So when Bungie realized they were going to be in a similar situation with Destiny 2, between Forsaken and whatever the next big expansion is going to be, they realized, well, we should push out some content to keep folks playing. The problem is they plan on releasing it in 3 parts. Black Armory, Joker, something involving the Drifter, and then another one that we don't have a title for. And they've since released a roadmap on what is being planned for each of them. The idea is that you can keep playing, your light level will go up without having to buy the expansions, but you just won't have access to the content as far as like the forges, the new exotic weapons, and other systems that they're implementing. You can do the major events like the Dawning and Crimson Days, but as far as actually earning new things, it's not possible aside from a higher light level. Which is all well and good. It keeps the community together, but it puts us on this artificial treadmill. And the artificial treadmill is being supported by a system where you have to buy yet another season pass. I was hesitant to get into Destiny 2 after Forsaken, because it feels that the game is now catering to a more quote-unquote hardcore audience, where you have to do a significant investment of time and coordination with other actual players, because there's not many matchmaking systems in place to accomplish what it is that you're after in the game, be it acquiring a new exotic weapon or completing raids or nightfalls. You have to work hard to do it. And I'm at the point in life where I don't want to invest that kind of time into Destiny. It's fun. It's a lot of fun to play, but there's other games that I would like to play. I still have a few games sitting on PlayStation 4 that I've not even really delved much into, and I want to, but I can't, because I feel that if I don't invest all the time that I have into games like WoW and Destiny, then I'm falling behind, and it sucks. WoW implements things like catch-up mechanics, where you can be brought back up, but Destiny doesn't have any real system like that in place. And then they do things like removing, making it harder to infuse gear, but that's besides the point. I'm at the point where I'm not comfortable in investing more money into a game where I understand that all of gaming at this point, because of microtransactions, is essentially keeping players on the treadmill, where they'll keep investing into a product. So instead of having to create 3 or 4 games a year, a publisher can really just bank on one game and then continuously do a drip feed of content and keep players engaged, and then more money coming into them. But it's at this point where I'm kind of done with the games as a service model. I want to be able to jump in, achieve the bulk of what I want to do, and then dip back out without feeling that I'm really being punished for it. And you could argue, well, then you're not actually playing the game. We shouldn't cater to you. There shouldn't be handouts, because that's not much of a reward for folks that have, continuously played the game and worked hard. And I get that. I understand it. It is difficult to find a delicate balance. And I'm not here to propose a solution that will, win the day for everybody. But it's frustrating. It really is, because I don't know what kind of content that Bungie's going to put out for this next season pass in Destiny 2, and since they can't tell us, I don't want to invest the money. And at the same time, my clan's going to start leaving me behind, because they've all purchased it, they're playing, and then we see the reviews for Black Armory, and they're not good. And if they continue to not be good, or if there's fixes not made, then the folks that bought the season pass are going to feel burned yet again, much like those that bought Curse of Osiris or the season pass. And that's where my issue, the core of my complaints come down to, is that if you are going to sell something to somebody, be it DLC or microtransactions, make sure that the consumer knows exactly what it is they are getting into. Companies like Bungie have burned my good faith, and It's the problem that we see with like pre-orders in a world where pre-orders shouldn't be a thing because almost everything is digital. There's no risk of running out of stock. You don't have to secure your purchase anymore. Companies are banking on people just buying and investing without knowing what it is they're going to get in return. That's the biggest issue that we have with loot boxes. You pay a set amount of money at a chance at getting a thing. There's no guarantee that you're going to get that costume that you want or that animation. It's a thing of, it's a slot machine. Pull the handle and hope for the best. And at this point, I'm done with it. I can't continue in investing in things like this. So if it's a thing of where I'm now being, left behind by my clan and I can't play as much with my friends, well, there's still single player games and I can go back to that. Kind of gonna go off on a little tangent here, but it was really, kind of brought to head not only by Destiny, but I had stated I'm going to try and get away from, wasting my time on Imgur and Reddit and looking at other things when I have downtime with my phone. So I took a look at the App Store and said, okay, well, let's find a game that I can, download and get into, and we'll take a look at things. And this is going to circle back to the original point of, why I don't like mobile games. I actually ended up finding a mobile title that I've been completely obsessed with over the past couple days. Let me see if we can find the name here, because I don't want to get it wrong. So, Shadow of Death, Dark Knight Stickman fighting. It embodied what captured me about it was that it embodied a lot of what I like about games, where I like my characters to look very, very pretty, and there's a wonderful art style to this game where everything's mostly blacked out, but there's vibrant colors that act as highlights and not stunning, but very picturesque backgrounds. And the game is essentially as you just wander through, these levels. You go left to right, and you just kill everything in your way with powers, and you level up your character, you give them gear, you get new abilities, and there's stat points that you can invest to make something stronger, and you actually do feel more powerful as you get through it. But despite how pretty it is and how much fun it is to play, the game is developed by a Vietnamese company. Let's see if we can find who it was here. Zonmob Game Studio. And they do the traditional, what I complained about earlier, the Asian development companies and publishers, where the copyright law is, again, more of a suggestion. There are definitely costumes, either very heavily inspired, if you're going to be generous, or directly ripped out of games like Castlevania, Dark Souls, Diablo. The big thing that they have is like wings, and so you can have like Dracula's wings, or you can have the angel wings from Diablo. You can have the Void Elf wings from World of Warcraft. You can have just all pretty much the what's his name, Astoria from Dark Souls 2 or 3. His armor set. And of course, these are all things you buy, and they follow up with like, well, you can buy gems and souls and these things you spend and invest on your other characters and level them up quickly. And they use the Kohl's model of, well, we have all these items, but they're all on sale. The price is normally $125, but instead you're getting it for $100. Or as the game advertises it, instead of paying $39, you only pay $19, or instead of $10, you're only paying $4.99. So they throw what the actual price is always and will always be $40.99. It's never going to be the $9.99. But they want to incentivize you, make you feel like you are getting a deal. The same for like their gems and souls bundles and things like that. But every time you exit a menu, you're brought right up to the shop screen like, oh, hey, buy this. And I'm not even kidding. Anytime you exit a menu to get or try to get to any different part of the game, that is thrown in your face. And it is enticing because they all look very, very pretty. And as I realize, because I've already spent $10 in the game, yay, thank you, Google AdSense, for, if you're on Android, Google AdSense is a wonderful little tool where you take surveys, mostly asking about yourself and shopping behaviors, which you can totally lie on, and then Google will give you money that you can then spend in the Google Play Store. And because I haven't spent anything in the better part of a year, I had about $10 banked up. So, like, okay, well, here's a character that I'm interested in, and they're $4.99, and you have to be level 30. I'm like, well, eventually I'm going to get to that point where I can unlock them, and I'd like to have them unlocked because I don't like this main character. So I pay the $4.99. They're like, okay, well, that level 30, I guess it doesn't matter, because when I hit level 10, I thought it was a thing of you had to hit the level and then pay to unlock that character class. No, you just hit the level and you'll unlock it. So, okay, that was $4.99, more or less, you could say, wasted, but I've been playing the character since. I enjoy it. It was worth it. But every time, the mentality of, okay, well, every time we're going to bring you back to a different screen, you're going to have to look at the store page first, and eventually got to me where it's like, all right, well, I'll get one of the $4.99 packs because I don't want to spend any money that's actually coming out of my bank account. Let's find one that I like. And eventually it did break me. Like, I was going to resist. I'm like, okay, I'll save that money for later. I'll save it for later. Something else might pop up. But eventually after, 3 days of seeing like one particular armor set, where it comes like with a weapon and you have wings and a new helmet and a new chest piece, and it sends you with a pet, a little bird that shoots lasers everywhere. It gives you a distinct advantage because these aren't cosmetic pieces only. These are cosmetic pieces with insane stats. So my character went from struggling on certain levels in, normal to I've now completed hard mode without breaking a sweat, and I'm on insane mode. So I've gone up 2 difficulty levels. And they also have a PvP element where there's this arena where you have rankings from bronze to silver to gold to platinum to whatever to blah, 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 blah. And I had been working my way through that, slowly, because the game also has a stamina system in place. Like, we're going to limit how much you can play unless you give us more money to refill your stamina. And the arena matches are what I enjoy most, but they take 3 times as much stamina to complete. So as I'm competing in bronze, it will show you, what your essentially power level is versus your opponent's power level. So you have your character level and then your power level. And depending on how the person's been playing or how much they've been paying, those numbers can wildly differentiate. So I had reached the top of bronze tier just on my own, but just by playing my character straight. And then I purchased the costume pack, and as of this morning, I am at the top of gold tier. So I completely went from struggling at the top of bronze, clear through silver without breaking a sweat, all the way up to the top of gold, and now I'm scratching at platinum. And I've noticed that as I have climbed through the ranks, the type of characters I'm fighting is changing, where it's not that base, the character the game starts you with anymore, and the gear that is default until you buy cosmetics. It all changes to where, okay, now we've clearly shifted to a pay-to-win model, where unless you spent money on the game, even at the minimal amount, you're not going to reach this point in the game. And it's disgusting in the sense that unless I want to dump, dozens or potentially hundreds of dollars into the game, I'm probably not going to reach that top echelon. But at the same time, it serves as a good reminder that I shouldn't be spending the money on something like that. And it's a deterrent. Like, okay, I could spend the money, but it puts me on a different treadmill where eventually I'm going to be throwing way too much money at a game that ultimately doesn't matter. But this led to seeing they have gift certificates in there where you can enter codes and get its. And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe folks have published the codes, or there was something on Twitter that got announced. Let me just do a cursory glance and see. It's an easy way for 5 to 10 minutes worth of work to give me something in the game. But this already shows how much the game has gotten into me, where I've only been playing it for a couple of days. I've spent $10 worth of money that I had or did not have depending on how you view AdSense. And I've spent multiple hours in it, and I've also watched many, many advertisements in it to increase the words I'm getting in the game. And now I'm actually going out of my way to find ways to improve my character in the game, like gift codes. Like, give me a code so I can get gems and souls and all this other stuff. But it led me to a point where I realized no matter how much I legitimately do in the game, I will never reach the top because the game is fundamentally broken. There are multiple videos and tutorials that essentially all link you to the same thing of downloading an APK onto your phone, which is third party. I'd never trust them. And then allows you to buy essentially whatever you want in the game with impunity. There's nothing standing in your way. And so those are the types of people that are going to be, sitting at the top tier of the game. And I'm never going to beat that because I refuse to cheat and to play at that level, even though you could argue that paying to win is cheating. So I finally find something I want to play on mobile, and it's the very embodiment of what I hate about mobile gaming. So I guess it just goes to show you, But that's going to wrap it up for this episode. If you have any comments, critiques, criticisms, concerns, questions, suggestions, drop an email over at theunwashedasses@gmail.com. Again, theunwashedasses@gmail.com. And if you want to support the show, all I ask for is $1 a month. That keeps things going and gives us something to look forward to. So instead of spending that $1 in a mobile title, why don't you just throw your old buddy Christian $1? $1 a month. We have different perks and tiers over at patreon.com/zeroand09, ZEROAND09. The one we're working towards most, though, is we get $100 a month, then we can make this show 5 times a week instead of the 3. But until then, insert witty catchphrase.